Well, women's health is an absolutely critical topic of conversation here at Broad Radio. We're really passionate about advocating for and supporting women in their women's health, which is why we are so excited to announce a partnership with Jean Hales for Women's Health. It's an amazing organisation that has worked tirelessly to advocate for women's health over the last 30 years. And the most exciting thing is that we are going to be doing a pop-up show for Women's Health Week this year, 6th to the 10th of September. You'll be able to see us every day sharing stories and information around women's health. And to talk more about the amazing work that Jean Hales for Women's Health does, we are so thrilled to welcome to the show CEO Janet Michelmore. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning. How are you?
We are both really well. Oh, I'm speaking on behalf of you, Zoe. Are you well?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for checking, Jo.
I don't want to assume. Janet, for people who don't know, could you just share what sorts of things Jean Hales for Women's Health does? What the amazing work that you do?
Jo, that's a great question because we do a variety of things focusing on the needs of women. So when we set up in 1992, we had a very clear vision that was to provide clinical services for women, to provide education programs, and also undertake clinical research that was relevant to women, particularly at that stage at midlife and beyond.
Janet, how have things changed over that period? Have your areas of emphasis shifted in terms of women's health?
They've expanded, not so much shifted. So it's really in response to what women are asking us for. So when we set up, the organisation was set up in memory of my mum, Jean Hales, and she was very focused on the needs of women at midlife and beyond. Her absolute mantra was make women from, say, mid-45 onwards a priority and ensure that they're in good health. So that means that when we opened, we were really looking at the needs of what was called the menopausal woman. So what did she need in terms of symptom relief, preventive health strategies as she grew older? Then what we know...
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
No, go, Jo, because I think I know what you're going to ask. Go for it.
Well, I just wonder if at that time, 30 years ago, to be speaking so openly about what you call the menopausal woman was groundbreaking then.
Well, I think actually what Mum did in the late 60s, early 70s was absolutely groundbreaking. One of the things that was said about my mum was that she was affronted by how her colleagues and the community regarded women as they got older. And Mum was no shrinking violet. She used her medical knowledge to make it better for women at this time in their lives. So she was absolutely a pioneer. So in 1972, she opened the first clinic in Australia devoted, and that was at the old Prince Henry's Hospital on St Kilda Road, a clinic that was absolutely devoted to women at midlife. For me, what was even more staggering was that it was staffed by what we would now call a multidisciplinary team. So there were female GPs who specialised in women's health. There were endocrinologists or hormone specialists, gynecologists. To say you were absolutely focused on women, and the menopausal transition was totally groundbreaking. She opened a second clinic at the Royal Women's Hospital in Parkville in 1974 with the same model. But what she also did was travel the country and talk to GPs and women about best practice management of menopause symptoms and how women could look after their bones and their health as they got older. That to me was absolutely groundbreaking. So when she died in 1988, way too young, she was only 61, her colleagues, and the family can take no credit for this, her colleagues who were all absolutely devoted, midlife woman has got to continue. And that was the beginning of Jean Hales for Women's Health.
And so would you say that that's been a success, Janet? I mean, Jean Hales for Women's Health is its own success story, but that shift in mentality, would you describe that as a success story?
Zoe, that's a slightly confronting question, because I look now at how some people regard the menopausal years and the menopause transition, and there is still stigma around it. And we've noticed recently a lot of media talking about women in the workplace who are going through these symptoms, how to best manage them, etc. And I think we've still got a long way to go to focus on actually women and men as they get older. But let's just focus on women at the moment. There are lots of things women can do to make themselves be in better shape, be it exercise, diet, etc. But there are some women who are seriously challenged by menopause symptoms. And then if we go to other areas that we look at now, polycystic ovary syndrome is one we look at and focus on, and also endometriosis, for exactly the same reason. We identify gaps in knowledge and care in women's health, and then ensure that both health professionals and the community have the latest evidence-based information so that those people can be well managed and well looked after as they manage those symptoms of those particular conditions.
Because those conditions are so debilitating and they receive very little funding, very little research, and there's still so little known about it.
Menopause, I think, has attracted some funding, and recently there has been a lot of funding for endometriosis. And I think that's a result, that endometriosis funding is a result of women and support groups who've done a fantastic job lobbying funding bodies, be it government, charitable bodies that donate money, to ensure that the awareness is better about symptoms of endometriosis and management of it. But sadly, even yesterday, I heard stories of women turning up to emergency departments with absolutely shocking pain, and either being told that they were dependent on drugs or that it was all in their head. We've still got a long way to go, that it's not in women's heads. They are not seeking illicit drugs. They are in serious pain. That pain needs to be acknowledged, it needs to be believed, and it needs to be well managed. Similarly, even now, when we look at the menopausal woman, who may complain of a variety of symptoms which do actually affect her quality of life and do affect her ability to cope with families, communities, and in the workplace. We actually need to address those and say, these are the best things for you to do to manage those symptoms. These are the risks and benefits of these management strategies, but ensure it's the latest evidence to provide to both women and health professionals who are looking after those women.
Are we getting better as women at firstly stepping forward and speaking up about these issues, but also self-care along the way?
Two great points. I look at how my daughter, who's in her mid-30s, how very open she is about her health, her ability to talk about her health, and her friends. I'm 67, and I still think that women of my age group are reluctant to complain, to say anything isn't going well. I think there's a cohort in the middle between my daughter and me who are actually doing much, much better than my age group at talking about things that affect them. And the stigma is reducing for particularly sensitive women's health issues. But it all depends on women's confidence. It depends on their knowledge. And if Jean Hales does nothing as an organisation except raise women's confidence to talk to their health professional, talk to their friends, That would be a big win for me. But it is all about being able to have the confidence to go and talk to doctors, to say, this is what I'm worried about. Can you tell me what are my options here? And Zoe, you had a second question, and now I've forgotten what it is.
Well, I think you answered both of them, because one was really about speaking up, and the second one is about looking after yourself. And those two things are quite interlinked in many ways.
They are, but you're right about looking after yourself. Particularly during the pandemic, there's been some good and bad things. We've all had to actually self-care in terms of when we've had to isolate, when we've had to go for COVID tests. So we've actually become, as a community, and I think women are particularly good at this, we've done very well. But in terms of where women put themselves on the priority list, and I'll use myself as a bad example, I work in the industry, I know what I should be doing, but during the last 18 months, we know that women have not taken up the opportunity or have been able to do their normal screening. And I could fib to you and say, oh, I've been perfect at this, but let me tell you, I haven't been. But the dog has been to the vet, but I actually haven't been to my cardiologist to have a checkup. So we actually put a lot of people first. And I've probably nagged the kids and made sure they've done their checkups. Historically, we know the literature tells us that women are not good at putting themselves first in terms of self-care. And that is something I hope younger women will be better at, and that is looking after themselves. It is not selfish to indulge in self-care. It's actually just a great thing to do. But women are not fabulous at it.
It's very hard because we feel the pressure of meeting our work expectations, caring for the family. If we have kids, that kind of juggle is a whole other level. And then, the dog needs to be walked and you've got to do the laundry and the house needs vacuuming. And in the end, you fall into bed at the end of the day exhausted, having done nothing for yourself. It's very hard to say, no, right now I'm giving myself 45 minutes to go for a run.
Oh, Jo, you've just nailed it on the head. And no, I'm going for a run, or actually I'm going to sit in a bath with a cup of tea. That seems for women a slightly selfish thing to do. And if we had one message, women taking time for themselves, and I know this is such a cliche, but the old safety demonstration on the aircraft, put on your mask before you look after other people. We've all heard it a million times, but it does apply to our own health. If we're in bad shape, we cannot look after people we live with, we cannot work effectively, and it's a really bad strategy. But it's going to take a little bit more time for women to actually appreciate that that's the way to go.
So this is, I suppose, one of the reasons why I think it was 10 years ago, 2013, Jean House for Women's Health established Women's Health Week, which has now become a national event on the calendar. What was your motivation in establishing Women's Health Week?
Getting the conversation started, Jo, and I think that's what we all want to do. We want people to ask questions, talk to their health professionals. So it was all about let's talk. And it's been remarkably successful. I've watched the development of Women's Health Week over that period, and I'm staggered and thrilled at the engagement. So this year, even when things are challenging, we're heading towards 2,000 events right around the country. We jokingly say from the Tiwi Islands to Tasmania, but it's absolutely true. We have from the smallest communities in the northern parts of Australia to the most southern tip of Australia. And that's very exciting, seeing women get together, talk to each other, and we provide daily content for these women that they can look at. It's providing opportunities, different learning opportunities for women. I come from an education background, and the thing I'm absolutely passionate about is making sure that we provide lots of ways for people to learn and lots of opportunities for women to talk to each other. There's nothing better than connectedness, as we all know. And the one thing, I don't know about you two, but I'm really missing catching up with friends, keeping in touch, just face to face. Zoom's. That's what Women's Health Week does. It connects communities, it connects women, and equally it provides opportunities to learn more about their health in the 5 days of content.
Yes, and I'll just give you the 5 days of content are really cool this year. You've got them themed. So each day represents a different theme around women's health, and they are mental health, movement versus marathon, periods, sex at any age, and sleep. All 5 of those things are so critical for women's health, and we're looking forward to bringing our pop-up show 6th to the 10th of September, where we're going to be having in-depth conversations about those 5 things. I have been just overjoyed to have you on the show this morning, Janet. I love the history that you and your family represent for women's health in Australia, to hear about your beautiful mum, Jean. And Zoe, this is my favourite takeaway from this morning: affronted about the way women were treated as they got older. How good is affronted? I'm always affronted. Zoe,
such a beautiful photo of Jean Hales too. She looks like a tough woman.
Yeah,
she was the kindest, most generous soul, and so damn funny. She was hysterical.
It must be such a delight to do something so important in her name.
I love every day that I work at Jean Hales. Absolutely love it. But I also have great admiration for, frankly, the guts my mum had to stand up and say, this is not good enough, people. We need to treat women better than this. And that was in the late 60s.
Oh, that's our mantra today. We need to treat women better than this, Zoe. Yes.
What a champion.
Yeah.
But thank you both very, very much. And thank you for this fabulous partnership, which I know together we're going to do wonderful things for women.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Janet Michelmore. It's been lovely to have you and to share all of that information around Jean Hales Women's Health. Zoe, I'm going to go about my day affronted as often as I can, because it comes on me sometimes.
Yes, I'm going for an affronted run today, Jo, after that.